What is up, my ninjas? I'm Strydent, and welcome to another video. Today we are going to be taking a look at the Joytoy Ramaz and Boris. Boris is a cyborg soldier. Ramaz is part of the West Asian Mercenary Legion, and these are from Joytoy. One of the cool things about these guys is they represent one of our first full-on, fully realized toy lines focused on original designs and characters, or mostly original designs and characters that don't really have anything to do with G.I. Joe. These guys are more on the future soldier kind of, wasteland warrior slash, kind of what I like, the area that Fenris Company kind of occupies in the Joe space. I dig the fact that these guys would fit in perfectly in that kind of a universe, and that's what drove me to be interested in this line. And I already had started collecting Joytoy mechas and such. A big shout out to Dem Guts for hooking me up with these. You guys may know him as Jossie on Facebook. We see him on the Strydent Facebook page often. Thank you, my ninja. I am super humbled and thankful for these. It's nice to get that interaction. I always talk about it, and it is important when it comes to this sort of somewhat thankless kind of, it's not really a job, so to speak, but this stuff that we do, we're doing it for fun, but recognition helps keep us going, and interaction helps us go even further, because at least we know someone out there is really taking to heart what we're saying and really respects what we have to say. So big thank you, my ninja. And yeah, I'm gonna keep doing this stuff. I got a whole bunch more coming your way. That Jigen review is on its way, so don't you worry about that. It's coming. But anyway, the design aesthetics for these guys are pretty dope. The fact that they have this look to them that you don't normally see, and the fact that we know everything else is trying to stay in the G.I. Joe space, with the exception of probably Chicken Fried Toys and their dime novel Legends. I guess you do have Hell Screamers. They're kind of trying to go to the far reaches of space instead of sticking to the Earth-based military stuff. Yeah, I like this look. I like this style. I like this aesthetic. It's nice. I hope that this continues, and I hope it's kind of successful, but the line is not without its issues, because it is a Chinese line. A lot of Chinese based companies and Chinese based or Chinese developed figure lines have quality control issues that kind of mar the figure. You know what I mean? They mar the product altogether. And it's usually something small. Sometimes it's build quality, but in this case, build quality is not so much an issue as the paint quality is. The paint on these guys is freaking horrendous, like painfully so. It's just fucking awful. And I'm gonna go into it in more detail, as we go through the rest of the video. But you know how we do. I'm gonna go into the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between. So I'm long-winded, so go ahead and get something to eat, something to drink, and make yourself comfortable, and we will get this show on the road. So here we go. So let's start off with Boris, the cyborg soldier. He's got a really, really cool look to him. He kind of feels like a cross between a couple things, all Titanfall related, but I'm going to go into that in a little bit. You see I have him on Ashiko's bike from Pursuit of Cobra, G.I. Joe Pursuit of Cobra. It's a cool futuristic bike that kind of doesn't fit with the G.I. Joe aesthetic, but when you look closely, it is similar to the bike that Firefly used in Retaliation. But anyway, we're talking about Boris. Boris's design is pretty dope. It has that, futuristic. It's almost like the newer Call of Duties. It has that kind of feel to it. Also, you see that there's a very minimalistic approach to the sculpt work on his gun, but there's a lot of intricate sculpting and panel lining and whatnot, and it all seems to work for the benefit of the whole. He doesn't look boring at all. And you know, he kind of works in any situation. You know, he could be a near future soldier if you have him in your current Joe, you know, universe or something, experimental gear, experimental weapons, etc., etc. And then if your setup is like mine, where you have a mixture, you have your back in the day with your 25th, your present day, which is your Pursuit of Cobra type stuff, and then you have your future stuff, which is all the custom work that I've been doing. And then you have guys like this that fit in with mechs and all that stuff. This is perfect. So yeah, I dig him for that reason. He is not a boring design, and he just looks tactical and interesting without being boring. But let's get into the sculpt and the paint on this dude. So when you look at this dude up close, there's just so much detail everywhere. It's like they went in and came up with a really good sculpt, and then turned around and painted it up really well with nice panel lining. Now, normally I don't point out anything about the packaging, but I just want to show you, you know, what he looks like on the package and show you that the figure actually looks exactly like that. Now, what I like about this design too is that because it fits in with that futuristic aesthetic, he can kind of sit alongside a lot of other types of figures. And these are the soldiers from, I think it's True Heroes, the Laser Corps or whatever. I just use them as mercs, and they look like they fit. He looks like he could be the leader, you know what I mean? And it works for me. There's another detail about his design that kind of leads me to kind of make him a certain character from another franchise that I like. And I always wanted to have him be part of my universe, especially since I'm using mechs and such. But you see how much detail went into this guy, and a lot of the detail are separate. The details are separate parts. But he reminds me of Kuben Blisk from Titanfall 2, down to the beard, the hairstyle. I mean, I know Blisk doesn't have a cybernetic arm, but he reminds me design-wise of the same, you know, that character. So in my universe, he's going to either be a Blisk analog, or he himself will be Blisk in my world. I think for now we're just going to say he's Blisk. Looking at that paint job on his face, the paint job is so-so. It's not the best. I mean, you see the eyes aren't painted. The pupils are, but the whites of the eyes are not. The beard is all right. You can see sculpt is kind of a little wonky in some places. And this is compared to Joe's, you know what I mean? The hair is masterfully done, and from some angles you can't even see the weirdness. But let's get into my problems, issues, and nitpicks, because man, look at that paint job. Holy shit. It was rubbing off just getting him out of the box, and he wasn't in a blister, so that it doesn't make sense to me that it was so bad. Just posing him, it was bad. I mean, look at that. Look at the part of the ball joint underneath the bicep that would rest against his, or I guess his shoulder joint, and his bicep that would rest against the side of his body. I mean, look at that. That's literally right. I did this review after taking him out of the package. It's taken me the longest time to edit all this together, but I mean, that was literally me taking him out of the package and positioning him, you know, for these pictures. One time, you know, look at his fingers. All that shit rubbed off, putting his weapons in his hands once or twice. That should never be the case. No figure should be losing paint right out of the package like that. That's horrendous, and they need to fix that shit quick. I mean, essentially, for anyone who buys these figures, you're going to need to seal the silver paint. And it's the silver more than anything else. Everything else seems to just be kind of standard. But as you can see, he poses well. The light hits him really well. He looks cool. His details are really nice. Let's get into his accessories, because he does come with a decent amount of accessories, just not the way that you would think. So this is the standard loadout essentially, but his belt has a whole bunch of pieces to it. Also, that magnet you see right there, it sits in the middle. It goes on his back. I fucked up and I put one of the magnets. You get four. I put one on backwards, so I had to put another one on the other side so that it would attach properly. So it magna locks like Master Chief in them. The helmet is removable too. The packaging. So this guy comes with everything assembled with the exception of the magnet, but the box is real bare bones. I mean, it's just a slipcover, brown cardboard box. Nothing special. The print on the front is a matte finish. There's no special fancy ink. There's even a couple typos like Lone Wolf. So it makes you wonder, what exactly are you paying the extra for? Now, as far as fun factor goes, it's fun. I mean, we're into these kinds of characters, these kinds of figures, this size, you know what I mean, this scale. So just as long as he can use the gear that he has, and we can pose him right, we can put him in whatever situation that we want, and it'll work for us because we're into this. It's one of those things where your enjoyment depends on how much or how easily you can put him into your existing situations. You know what I mean? For me, it's kind of simple because he fits the aesthetic that I'm going for my guys. Now, for everyone else, I don't know. I know a lot of Joe collectors don't like the Future Soldier stuff. They don't like the sci-fi stuff, so this might not work for them. Now let's move on to Ramaz. Ramaz, West Asian Mercenary Legion. Now he's pretty cool too. He feels like, even though he has a name, which would make him technically a face character, he feels like he's supposed to be an army builder. A lot of people seem to use him that way, but at $30 a pop, I don't see that being a thing. A $30 fucking army builder. Anyway, Sculpt and Paint, he's got some nice detail on him, and in a way that's a little bit more impressive than on Boris. Boris is on the brighter side. This dude is all earth tones, and it's hard to make things pop when everything is an earth tone, and they did it masterfully. And unlike Boris, none of the paint on this guy seems to be rubbing off as badly as the paint on Boris. So, this gives him it gives Ramaz a kind of a one-up on Boris. Ramaz actually comes with a little bit more than Boris does, but unlike Boris, you have to put everything on this guy. Every piece of armor, everything. So let's talk about his accessories. Ramaz comes in what I like to call a jump pod. These are the pods that they drop, or a drop pod, I guess you could call it. They drop them from whatever the ship is that is carrying all the personnel, and they drop them onto the battlefield. The last game I can think of that had these, Halo has them. Starhawk had them. It was actually a big part of the gameplay. I love it. And there's a little LED light. I was gonna say LCD. God, LED light inside, and it lights up really well. Thanks to ODC for pointing that out, because I completely missed this. Tiny little switch up top. Once again, I wasn't looking for it, so I didn't realize. And yeah, it's really bright. But I'm gonna use this as a drop pod for Fenris Company. We're going to shoot these out of, our ship, out of the Moro, formerly known as the Wyvern. But it just works. You know what I mean? You don't really have to think too hard about what to do with this. Some people are going to use it as like a gestation pod or something for your zombies or whatever. And, it could work like that too. But anyway, the weapons, more accessories. These are the weapons he comes with. Ramaz comes with his sniper rifle, which has a bipod that's optional. You can actually pull that off. It just clips in. It's kind of hinged at the clip, so you can have it actually stand, or you can just, have it doing its regular thing. He holds this thing like a champ. He can look down the sights. He can lay prone. The whole nine, he can do it. So I like it. Looking at the clip, I think it's a sniper rifle because that clip is not very big, and the bullets would have to be huge, so there would only be a handful of shots in there. So I'm assuming that this is a standard sniper rifle, and he does not have an assault rifle, which is why he has the pistol. So Ramaz is the sniper of the squad. If this is indeed a squad and he is not the army builder, because it's possible you could have a legion or a team or a battalion of snipers, you know. It would be weird. I mean, I've never really heard of that, but I'm sure it could exist, you know. But he looks good with it, and it's easy to pose him. Everything has a place with the exception of the knife. The knife itself comes in the sheath. It's really hard to get out once you get it back in. It fits snugly, but there's nowhere on him to put it. I think you have to glue it on. Now the pistol, his pistol is nice. It kind of looks like a Beretta. It's pretty nice, very simple, straightforward. He holds it well. He can cup the or support his gun hand, which is perfect. That's what you want. He kind of looks like a marksman the ways that you can get him to hold his pistol, and that's what you want. You want him to look like a marksman. Oh, and I forgot to add, he can't hold the knife at all. I did take some footage, but it was kind of blurry, but it just kind of sits in his hand. But the gun fits snugly, so this guy is your team marksman. You can give him whatever guns and he should be, you know, a champ. The details on his helmet, which is not a separate piece, his helmet is very well detailed. I mean, I should have probably went into this in the sculpt and paint section, but while we're talking about, you know, accessories, those goggles could have been accessories. They're that good and they're well painted. Okay, so I'm going to continue because everything you see on him, all the armor bits, the holsters, everything except for his flak jacket, I had to put together and put on his body. Now I thought it was weird because so he comes with all the accessories essentially, because he comes with, you know, the pistol, sniper rifle, the knife, and the jump pod or the drop pod. Boris comes with just the pistol and his rifle, the magnets, and his helmet. That's it. But he has the same pieces of armor already assembled on his person. How is it that the two figures could cost the same amount of money? And in some places, Boris goes for more money. I don't get that, because if I have to do all the work, then the figure should cost less. That's the way, you know, I know this to work. You know what I'm saying? Typically, if you have to do it yourself, that drops the price. When you look at like Figurized 6 figures, essentially they're models. They're the model version of a lot of the Figuarts. They're made without the die cast, so you're putting together all the plastic pieces that typically are made on sprues, and you would have to paint whatever needs to be painted to get that extra bit of detail, but you do it yourself, you pay less than $40, unless it's like a rare kit, you know what I'm saying? But everything I had to put on him. The extra clips, I had to put on him. All of the little pieces you see on his belt, I had to put on him, and then I had to glue the belt properly closed. It just kind of doesn't make sense for what you're paying. I mean, $30, these cost more than Joe's. I don't know about that. I mean, it all looks great though. But let's get into the articulation. Before I jump in fully, I wanted to point out that the Ramaz's head is also on a ball joint. It's 2 ball joints. There's the one at the top of the neck and the one at the base. And that's in addition to his head connecting on that. So if you do want to have him without the burlap scarf, you could pull that off. Okay, so articulation on them, it's weird because there's a lot of ball joints, you know, on the 2 of them. Just about everything that you see on one is going to be on the other one, but we're going to focus on Boris. I don't know why my camera does that. It moves with me when I'm kind of close to the lens. But just about everything is on a ball joint. The neck, the top of the head, the waist is on a ball joint, his thighs, his shoulders. But so this is a double ball joint, but you got to be careful with it because if you move it around a couple times too much, the head will pop off. Oftentimes when I was posing him, his head just kept popping off while I would pose him. But you can get some side-to-side action. You almost get everything you want as far as posability goes with that kind of a neck. I just wish it was more secure. The same goes for the waist. You get the twist. You get a little bit of ab crunch because, like I said, it's on a ball joint. You don't really get anything going back. the legs, he can do the splits because it is a ball joint, but the belt gets in the way, so you have to move the pockets and the different containers or whatever out of the way, and or pouches, and that would allow for, you know, high kicks and, you know, splits and things like that. As you can see here, I'm going to try to, there goes his head. I'm going to try to get him into a kick pose so you can see what I'm talking about. They look pretty natural. You know, a little bit more natural than what you get with some of the Joes, because the Joes don't have the torso articulation. Double jointed knees. I ended up jumping forward a little bit because for some reason my footage was acting up. But yeah, you see he's got the up and down secret joint that we started getting in Pursuit of Cobra. He has it on his right hand, and then the left hand is the up and down. So you can punch or hit your nose up into your brain. You know, he can do that sort of thing. He does have swivels in the thighs and at the boots. He's got boot cuts, and he has ankle pivot, which I will show you in a second when it comes to some of the stuff that I show you. Because since there's two of them, I got to go back and forth with them and show you what you know, they both can do. But like I said, everything that's on Boris is on him. But the problem with him is what you see just happened. The ball joint just, the recess is not deep enough. So any little bit of movement, you know, you move him 2-3 times, he will pop out. The legs are the same. I did want to show you that, you know, their helmets, Boris's helmet is removable, but Ramaz is not. Their shoulders work the same way. Ramaz has a little bit more range of motion because he doesn't have anything in the way. He still has the same issue when it comes to his, you know, hip joints, but he does have the double jointed knee. He has the toe articulation. They both actually have that. I figured I'd just show it to you with Ramaz since I didn't go over it with Boris outside of the kick. But you can see the boot rotation, and there's a thigh swivel. And there's also a swivel at the ankle, and the ankles can move up. And they're that weird, the DC Collectibles style ankle pivot where you kind of twist it, and you'll still have to use the hinge at the ankle in order to get it to sit flat. And he can go a decent distance. And you got to be careful with the legs too, because they are ball socket joints. If you move them too much, you know, too far apart or whatever, they pop out, which is a gift and a curse. It's a good thing to avoid you breaking the figure, but it's a pain in the ass because it's not like with the original Joes where they're secure. But that's as far apart as he can get right now with his legs flat on the ground utilizing the pivot. I mean, it's very good articulation. I could do without the toe articulation because, I mean, it's a G.I. Joe. We don't really use that with them. But overall, they're pretty damn good as far as articulation. I mean, if you were going to design a G.I. Joe killer, essentially you're part of the way there with these guys, you know? You're part of the way there. They're doing things that Hasbro hasn't done. So props to them for that. All right, I figured out I'd do a little comparison for you guys so you could see these guys and how they measure up next to, you know, G.I. Joes and, you know, Legends and Figuarts. I figure that kind of runs the gamut as far as size goes. No, I do not collect Acid Rain. They are ugly as fuck. They have good articulation, and that's about it. I think they are completely devoid of personality. With the exception of a couple, you know, specific figures. I think they're called the Prisoner. What is it called? The Space Prisoner or something like that. It's like an astronaut. That thing is amazing. But overall, like their soldier figures, not feeling them. They're just kind of, they're blocky and boring and slopped on paint and just overpriced and ugly. And yeah, no. I think if I had a choice between Acid Rain and these guys, you go for these guys. If you really want that aesthetic, get Ramaz. Get the East or West Asian Mercenary Legion figures. There's another one. I think they're called the West African Corps or something like that. I can't remember what they're called, but I'll look them up and I'll have pictures somewhere in either this video or on the Strydent page on Facebook. But I mean, as you can see, they're essentially maybe a hair smaller than your Joes. And it's mostly because they can't stand up perfectly straight because the armor kind of prevents their legs from, straightening up. Also, the way the hinge is designed, their legs kind of stay a little farther apart. But I mean, they're Joes essentially, Like I told you before, the build quality may vary because it seems like the process is a little bit more loosely handled. So sometimes joints will fit, ball joints will have recesses that work and sometimes they won't. But other than that, like I said, this is how they measure up. I think they measure up fine. I wouldn't even be mad if they were a little bit bigger than Joe's because then that would really separate them as characters in your Joe-verse, all for variety and all that. But yeah, there they go. And now for the bottom line. I think these guys, for someone who's tired of G.I. Joe's, the way Hasbro has been handling G.I. Joe, the way that they keep on trying to reboot and change, but not, acknowledge the fact that there are multiple ways that you could take the franchise, multiple directions, and still have an aesthetic that stands out. To see other people do it and do it well, and a Chinese company at that, I'm in love. I love it. Now they need their paint taken care of, especially the silver paint. But you guys remember that I reviewed the smaller Joytoy figures. I think that was 1/24th or 1/27th scale. He came with the mech. Well, I got him with the mech that I bought. They're cool looking small figures, and they have so many different versions of them. And I know there's like a tabletop game that goes to them and stuff. But that wasn't for me. It was too small. The fact that they actually give us a 1/18th scale offering, with similar design aesthetics, all pulled from Titanfall, regardless of whether you know it or not, I love it. I love it. And I love the fact that they're expanding on that with each line, or each wave. So for me, this is kind of I need to see more, and I need to I hope that they improve as they keep going, because this is right up my alley. I mean, it's 100% right up my alley. Like, if I wanted to make enemies, I could make one of the teams, maybe Chimera Corps or company could be all, these figures, or Perseus company, the guys that pilot all the mechs. They could actually be Joytoy figures, which would be perfect because they're going to mostly be inside of mechs. So I really dig the look of these figures. I dig that style. Even though, if you look closely, you can see that the base figure is the same for almost all of them. They're doing enough to make them, feel different. They don't feel exactly the same. Now, I think I'll really be blown away is if I get to go back and get the figure that I had ordered forever ago, and I still haven't gotten them. I still haven't been able to resolve that issue. I still haven't gotten my money back. But I pre-ordered this guy. I pre-ordered this guy last October. It was like September, October-ish. And I'm still waiting for him, and it's about to be about that time. It's about a year. And I know these figures came out. I've seen reviews. I've seen, pictures of them on various, social media sites, and I'm still waiting on mine. So, hopefully I'll be getting my money back sometime soon, and then I could purchase him from like Big Bad Toy Store or something, as much as I don't like dealing with them. But I mean, he looks different enough that I could see using this particular team or a couple of guys with similar armor to him to complete a team that I'm making, because it's different from the other guys. And then also there are a couple other teams that are out there. There is an airborne squad and or a paratrooper squad, and then there's a Marine Corps unit that they've done, and I like the aesthetic that they're going for. They look very different. One clearly looks bad and one clearly looks good. You can tell the Marine Corps unit, it's the United States Marine Corps. It's not some other variation. But overall, I'm picking up what these guys are putting down. I mean, it's nice to see someone take what Hasbro refuses to do and run with that shit, because that's what we need. We need something else. Now, if they can get the vehicles down, because the vehicles they have for their 1/24th scale figures are fucking amazing. Now, if they could do that with these guys and then price them in a way that makes them accessible for the rest of us, because their mechas, some of them have gone off the rails in price. I mean, at most retailers, you know what I mean? Or e-tailers, I should say. But overall, the design and the build quality of the mecha are amazing. Now, if they could carry that over to vehicles that suit this fit this aesthetic, we've got a winner on our hands. You know what I mean? Even at $30 a pop, this would give G.I. Joe a run for its money, no matter what state they come back in when this film comes, if it comes. You know what I mean? So for me, as someone who's, you know, I'm over the G.I. Joe drought, quote unquote, because there is no drought when you have Marauders, you have Vitruvian Hacks, you have, you know, you've had Black Major if you like the old school O-ring style figures. Marauders has you covered on so many levels. They've had us covered on so many levels, but you've got Joytoy also jumping in. And that's just to name a few. You know, there's other guys out there like Hell Screamers, like Fresh Monkey Productions doing the return of the Eagle Force. And the list goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on. So it's up to you which place you want to get in, you know what I mean? But this wouldn't be a bad place to get in, you know? And Joytoy is doing a variety of types of figures too. They've got these more grounded street, I guess they're cops. Still 1/18 scale, same articulation scheme, etc., and they look good. So overall, I am fairly impressed with these guys. They're not without their flaws. Mainly Boris is not without his flaws, but if you could get past that sort of thing, or if you're more into playing, so seeing that kind of scuffing with the paint on him doesn't deter you, then you will be able to enjoy these figures. If you can decide if you want neck movement or you want the head to move, so you decide which part you're going to glue down, you'll enjoy these figures. You know what I mean? If you really need the waist to turn, you know, because of the ball joint being not having a recess that's deep enough to fit in, if you can get past that and you just glue it in there and you're good, you'll enjoy these figures. Now, if you're one of those people who every single piece has to work perfectly and, you know, you want articulation for the sake of articulation, that sort of thing, this wouldn't be for you, because not all of this is functional. You know me, I'm a little bit in the middle. When it comes to 6-inch figures, I want everything to work. The form needs to follow the function. When it comes to you know, 1/18 scale figures, I'm a little bit more lenient, because the idea is, can I play with this toy? And, you know, since my sons and I, we play test all these figures, we need to be able to play with these guys. Now, I haven't been able to play test these guys. I've been extremely busy. I'm going to include them in one of the shorts that's on its way, because I plan on doing one sometime soon, and we'll see how he holds up. But yeah, this has been my look at the Joytoy Boris, the Cyborg Soldier, and Ramaz, the West Asian Mercenary Legion, or a member of the West Asian Mercenary Legion. These guys are dope. They're out right now. They're $30 a pop. Some places have them for more. If you get them on like AliExpress, you could probably get them for a little bit less, but a lot of times they're selling them in bulk. But I think these guys are at least a solid B. It's a good effort, you know, coming from Joytoy, and that's my story, and I am sticking to it. I hope you guys dug it. As always, that's it for me. You guys have been great. Peace outside.